Thanks for downloading this episode of the Resilient Advisor Podcast. My name is Jay Coulter, and joining me today is Professor Jamie Hopkins. Jamie is the co-director of the New York Life Center for Retirement Income. He is a professor in the Retirement Income Program at the American College of Financial Services. He's also a regular contributor for Forbes and Investment News on retirement income planning. He is also a retire mentor for MarketWatch and has been published in dozens of journals regarding tax law and retirement income planning. Jamie, thanks for coming back on the podcast.
Yeah, Jay, thanks for having me back on. I'm excited to be here.
All right, so I wanted to have you back on because you've recently released a new book called Rewirement, Rewiring the Way You Think About Retirement Planning. Tell us, what made you write this book?
Yeah, so I'm pretty excited about the book. It's just kind of hit the shelves about a month ago now. And what was the catalyst for this? It actually goes back to kind of two things. One is my work here at the American College on building the RICP program, the Retirement Income Certified Professional Program. So I've been focusing on retirement income kind of almost exclusively now for about 6 years. And so that's just become part of my life. And then the second part is research that I've done here at the college and published in Journal of Financial Planning, Journal of Retirement, and been speaking on a lot. I do a lot of retirement income literacy. And one of the most amazing things that we found, not necessarily surprising, but still amazing, is how terrible America's retirement income literacy is. That the average person really doesn't understand the depth and detail of the decisions they're going to have to make in retirement. Retirement is actually a much more challenging kind of financial situation than saving for retirement, that the income part has a lot of more moving parts that are harder to recover from. And so, I kind of thought that this idea of rewirement, changing the way you think about retirement income planning, was really important as a concept that needs to get out there. And so that's really why I wrote it. And I wrote it to actually support those advisors that are doing retirement income planning in their practices. It's a great area. It's a great area of growth. We're going to have tremendous need there for not 5 years, not 10 years, but 15, 20, 25 years. There's going to be growth in that area.
Yeah, clearly that's a massive market. Could you, for the listeners who don't know about the RICP designation, tell us a little bit about it and how you would go about obtaining it?
Yeah, so it's a great program. So the American College has been around over 90 years now as its own freestanding, accredited nonprofit college. And so we go through all the same processes at UPenn, Villanova, or other local schools do to be accredited college. Now, we built out the RICP I guess back in 2011-12, we kind of started the program and built it out. Now, it's 3, what we would say is college-level style courses. A good comparison would be a CFP-type course. It's about the same level of length and kind of depth of material, but it's not broad-based. It is retirement income specific. So 3 courses that go through Social Security, Medicare, housing, distribution strategies, how you use annuities in a plan, life insurance, all those aspects, long-term care, and how do you put a whole retirement income plan together? So 3 courses, about 25 hours of lecture videos in each course. So we actually built this very differently than any other course that's really out there, is that it's really all built with outside experts. So the Michael Kitseys of the world, the Wade Fowles, Moshe Molesky, Tom Hagna, the big names that you see out on the speaking circuit, they're all in the program. We have over 50 different experts now in the program. So when we said, let's talk about the 4% rule, well, banging. Talking about 4%. When we talk about using, kind of annuities and some of the strategic ways that are out there, Moshe Molesky's talking about that as the kind of top researcher. We talk about managed payout funds. Well, we brought the guy in from Vanguard who created those. So so you don't have to listen to Jamie Hopkins for 3 courses. You actually get to hear you actually get to hear from the person who really is the groundbreaker kind of academic or, strategic leader in that area. So it is a program you can only get through the college as of right now. Like, you do have to go through the American college. It's 3 courses, kind of CFP quality level. There's 1 test after each course, so no cumulative test. But I would say each course gets harder because it really does build off of itself. By the end of it, you should be thinking in kind of a holistic manner at that point.
Those are definitely high-level subject matter experts lecturing in that course. Tell me, how long would it take an advisor to go through it? And then as a follow-up, if you already have the CFP designation, does it make sense to go through this course?
Yeah, so we really built it, kind of hit the last one first. We really built this in our mind as to be a CFP kind of plus designation. So CHFC, CLU, CFP, CFA. We kind of think that builds a good kind of ground level kind of financial planning, investment, insurance base, and that this really takes you to a specialization above that. So it looks at stuff that's not covered in any of those other programs, which really makes it unique and valuable for an advisor that has been around a long time. And so I have an email that came across my desk this morning. A 20-year plus CFP advisor just signed up and was saying, it's one of the best things they've ever taken. It's incredibly practical, and they're already using some of the stuff from the videos they saw in their practice with their clients, and they're not even done the first course. So that's kind of the message that we've got him. And to kind of highlight that, obviously I'm biased. I help build out the designation. But the American College has existed for 90 years, right? And last year was the first year in 90 years that any program had more annual signups than the CLU. So the CLU has been the traditional insurance one. That's always been number one. The CFP never passed it, CHFC. The first year ever in 90-plus years, the RICP had more registrations than that. So you can just see it hit a tone out there. We had about 6,000 graduates from the program now since 2012, and another 11,000 financial advisors enrolled in the program today. So it's hitting a need out there.
Yeah, that's a lot of advisors signed up in the program actively right now. 11,000. Yeah. Wow. And so how long is it taking them to get through on average?
Yeah, so most people can finish within a year. So it's 3 courses. It's about 25 hours of lecture. Most people take about 40 to 60 hours of work to get through each course. Now, if you look at it like that, you could say, well, I could go through the whole thing in a month. I mean, if you weren't working, maybe, you could just spend a month doing all of it. But since most people are working full-time here, we're seeing they're doing, 2 or 3 hours a day in the morning. Maybe they come in an hour earlier, stay a little later after their last clients. And they're kind of doing it like that. So most people are finishing within a year. Typically, we see, there's a lot of people that won't ever finish. They sign up, they don't enroll, they get through one course, they switch firms. So we will have a number of that 11,000 that never finish. Now, I'd like it for everyone to finish, but I know in reality, pull through on CFP, all of the programs we've ever seen, you do have a lot of attrition and dropout. But, I think we'll have, more than 60, probably between 60 and 70% of them actually finish because it's only a 3-course as opposed to, doing 7, 8, 9-course designation. You're going to lose more people in that.
Yeah, and 1 year is very manageable, especially if you have a mature practice and these issues are front and center and there's practical applications the day you take the course. So I could see why it's popular.
Yeah, and I think that's the big piece, right? That this is supposed to be, right, pracademic. So we're kind of trying to find that mix of academic integrity, being at college, having high-level academics involved in it, but making sure that it's practical to your everyday work, right? That when you spend 2 hours in the program, that you say, oh, there's 2 things I can use today with my clients, right? That's what I feel like has made this more powerful. And I believe that really came from using these outside experts, using these people who are doing this. So we have a mix of practitioners and academics in there. And I think that's kind of highlighted it as opposed to being just an academic lecturing to you, where maybe you lose some of that pragmatic aspect of why you're actually there to learn.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And I tell you, it seems like a good bridge from your work on the designation and your new book is really what I think seems to be your passion, and that is retirement income literacy. Between the program and writing your new book, what's new in retirement income literacy?
Yeah, so a very interesting thing I just presented on this last week was that one of our literacy research projects we did, we actually looked at the impact really of the advisor on literacy, and really what I should say is the non-impact of an advisor on a client's literacy. And so perhaps it's very interesting. So what you see is actually respondents that take our quizzes, that have advisors actually perform much, much worse than the ones without advisors. And at first, when I present that to advisors, they feel shocked, right? Like, well, my clients,
Sure.
I have to be teaching them something, right? Like, well, now there are some good aspects of this too, which is if you're not a retirement income or financially literate person, you should be getting an advisor, right? If you're going to do it yourself, you're going to have to learn more. So that actually does that's our hypothesis of explaining it, right? I don't actually think that people get dumber when they work with advisors. I think that, right, you have to learn it if you're going to do it yourself.
They're outsourcing, right? I mean, the idea of the advisor, they're outsourcing it so they don't pay attention to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I don't know much about cars, right? I'm not going to fix my car. So I hire somebody who can fix my car when the car has problems. That's outsourcing. Could I learn about cars? Of course I could. And could I fix my car? Of course I could. I did roofing and gutters growing up. So, like, I know how to, do actual work, as opposed to being a professor. But I'm not going to do that now, right? I've learned, okay, I can outsource. So some people outsource their financial decisions to advisors. But that was a shock to a lot of advisors, because a lot of advisors view themselves as somebody who helps their clients make informed decisions. But we don't see a lot of good evidence that the advisor's clients are very well informed about the decisions they're making. So then that goes back to, what is that role of the advisor? Are you there to help them, teach them, make sure that they do learn so they make informed decisions? Or are you kind of more going the behavioral finance route of Kahneman and other individuals, Thaler, who said, like, well, people aren't that good at making their own financial decisions, right? Now, we don't want to take autonomy away from them, but we want to put a system in place that helps them kind of get to the right outcome, right, without kind of removing decision-making entirely, the nudge idea, right, that we're going to automatically enroll people and auto-escalate, and we're going to put target date funds. You do all that stuff that's worked on that side. And is that what you're doing as an advisor, that you're building a plan that really supports, when they're working inside of a comprehensive income plan, that we've kind of built the framework to help them make good decisions?
Okay. I got it. So, I mean, a little bit of behavioral finance in there, but if I understand you correctly, you're saying that it's the advisor's responsibility to put a system in place to help them make better decisions, but still incorporate the advisor in that process.
Yeah, so, and that's where the big change comes from, right? Because a lot of advisors think, well, I need to educate them. Maybe, right? But maybe what it really is you need to get them to the right decision. Now, in neither case, we're trying to take away somebody's decision-making, right? But we either educate them so they can make good decisions, or we build a good framework that encourages good decisions, right? And what we've kind of seen from a behavioral finance and research world is the education part's really hard to move the needle on. It's hard to actually re-educate somebody fully. Instead, what we need to do is we need to build a system that allows you to understand why we're doing the things that we're doing and to get you to those good outcomes. So, that's making sure as the advisor that we're covering all the areas, that these things are incorporated together when we're making decisions, as opposed to just, telling a client why, longevity risk is important, and then hoping that they can take that information and make a smart Social Security claiming decision, right? That, they will have knowledge, but can they still apply it correctly? There's still not a lot of good research that says that. So we do need that framework from the advisor to help guide the client through the process to have a better outcome.
And is that what your book's about, the framework for the systems?
Yeah, it really is. So, the title says obviously we need to change the way we think, but then I go through a process, right? What is the process that we need to do here? And, my process is really goal-based planning. So it is client, what are your goals? Then the financial plan, the retirement income plan, is really just the means to the end, right? But having a repeatable, scalable process from an advisor's standpoint is very helpful because then, right, you can do that over and over and over again with every new client. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. And then instead, you're fine-tuning it, right? You're getting better at it over time. You're learning what stories work, what framework works. And it actually helps a lot of clients that have kind of done this move away from the idea of becoming a product salesperson, right, to a planning person. And then, one of my friends, she's kind of adopted this process. She said it's been great because the products and solutions sell themselves inside of the framework then, right? When you have a goal-based framework that supports what the client wants, then all of a sudden everything else kind of falls into place over time. You don't have to go back and resell somebody on every product that you're trying to get them to adopt.
Got it. So could you give us a little color on this framework and what some of the steps might be?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we can just kind of walk through it. With it, I'm not going to be able to get through the whole thing right now, but we can at least go through the kind of process that I use. So as I said, I really talk about it as goal-based planning. Actually, kind of the quote that I love that I did for myself. I actually quote myself in my own book. And one of my friends said, that's a pure power move, Jamie, if you quote Abraham Lincoln about 50 pages behind yourself.
You haven't really written a book if you don't quote yourself.
Yeah, exactly. So what I always say is retirement income planning is like hitting a moving target in the wind. And so why? Because what it is we're trying to hit a target, right, which is kind of the client's goals, but it's going to move up, it's going to move back. Longevity and different risks are going to change that target. And it's like we're trying to hit it in the wind because we can't just take a perfectly straight shot to it, right? Things are going to change along our path. That interest rates will change, government policies will change, our health will change. And so it's not going to be a straight line to our target. So that's kind of, why I think we need a process in place, right? Because just a set plan isn't going to work. And so, again, it does start with kind of determining the client's goals. And then we evaluate their current situation. And by evaluating their current situation, that gives us a better understanding of their income needs. So we got their goals, their situation, their income needs. Then I actually go through the identify sources of retirement income. Now, that one is actually an area that I think advisors need to change the way they think about this. And I talk to reporters about this a lot, that advisors need to get to more of a holistic view of assets and income sources. So considering the home, considering part-time work, right? Those things need to come into this too, because those are some of the biggest assets that people have, not just stocks and bonds. It's got to be a little bit broader than that. Then we will do some type of, calculation, right? Some Monte Carlo analysis. Can we meet those goals based off of our income sources? And if we can't, then we've got to develop a strategy to address a shortfall there. So is it better asset allocation? Is it retiring at a different date? Is it utilizing home equity? Is it downsizing, hitting expenses? So, sometime on the expense side, that might be the only place we really have a big impact, but we could have a huge impact there, right? I might be able to cut somebody's expenses in half. It's really hard for me to increase somebody's income, right, by 50%. That's a tough one. I can't generate more stock returns than the stocks are returning, but I can work on the expense side in a lot of cases. Then I'll talk about using a tax-efficient strategy. So then we'll be talking about Roth conversions, strategic withdrawal strategies, maybe layering in annuity income. Then kind of the risk planning piece there. So healthcare, long-term care, longevity, I'll tie in. Then we actually will convert assets into income, then kind of put plan in motion and follow it over time. And so you can see over time, right, going back to any of those steps as goals change, we go back up to step one and work back through, right? If the income sources change, we could hop back to step three and kind of work back through. So as a advisor, it allows you to kind of say, okay, when I'm dealing with a client and one of these pieces change, where do I go back in my process? right? I don't necessarily always need to go back to step one, but, right, long-term care all of a sudden changes. Well, I know where that was in my process. And it doesn't necessarily throw the entire plan and our whole practice out of whack because one little thing changes.
Got it. So the book walks advisors, well, and potentially clients through this framework and these systems. So it sounds like this book could be a great resource for advisors who are starting to engage with clients on these issues. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair. So what I would kind of say the target audience for this is I always say kind of higher level consumers. So it's, the book is really not for our bottom third of the country. Unfortunately, most of these decisions that I talk about in the book really don't apply to that group. They're mostly, they have to work longer. They got to make good Social Security decisions. Now, middle income America, a lot of this does apply to them, but they're usually not kind of fully engaged in a retirement income planning process. They often don't have an advisor. And so then this is more for that top third, which tends to be working with advisors. And honestly, advisors are part of that group too. I know they often don't want to consider themselves as part of that group, but advisors often need their own help and their own planning. So it does kind of hit that whole group, that top end advisor. And, it does speak more, I would say it more has a tone of speaking to an individual as opposed to an advisor, right? So I'm not addressing you as an advisor, you should do X, Y, and Z. I really am talking about you as an individual. So it is a great tool for an advisor to kind of learn from and also to utilize with their clients to say, hey, look, this is why we're doing the things that we're doing for you, right? This is why we're putting a plan in place. This is why we're using long-term care insurance or a hybrid asset-based product, or why we're using annuities, or why we have our asset allocation as we do. So it kind of supports all those decisions and the framework that advisors use on a daily basis.
Excellent. Jamie, before we wrap up, is there anything else advisors need to know about this book and how they could use it?
Well, I guess one thing we should probably tell people where they can get it. That's a good start.
That makes it helpful.
Yeah, rewiring the way you think about retirement. Luckily, at this point, it's about the only thing that comes up when you Google rewirement. So that's a good start. But it's available on Amazon. So you can get it there. You can purchase hard copies, or they've got Kindle, Fire, all those kind of digital versions of it available through Amazon. I do bulk orders, too, for advisory firms, financial planning, insurance places, but I unfortunately can't do that through Amazon. You actually just have to email me, and either the best way to do that is to send me a message at the college email. That's kind of my most the public-facing one, which is just jamie.hopkins@theamericancollege.edu, or you could go through my website, which is hopkinsretirement.com. So those are kind of all the different ways to contact me. So if you are interested in bulk orders or just getting one for yourself, I'd advise you to check it out. It's a pretty quick read, about 180 pages, so you can get through it in a week. It's not going to be a problem. It's not one of my textbooks, which is I have a textbook over 800 pages. That'll take you a little bit longer.
Yes, yeah. Jamie, you have been an absolute wealth of knowledge yet again. I appreciate you coming on the podcast, and listeners, I'll have links to all that information in the show notes.
Okay. Thank you again, Jay, for having me on. And I would just kind of close with one more thought, that if you're an advisor that's listening to this and you're not doing income planning for your clients, I'd say, consider that. It's a great niche area to be in. As I said, it's going to be there for a long time. Start developing that practice around income planning, because that will allow you to keep your clients for life, right? That they're going to stay with you through the entirety of their retirement. And that's a big deal. I don't know very many advisors that want to lose their clients when they hit retirement age.
Perfect. Thanks again for coming on the podcast, Jamie.
Thank you, Jay.